Hi, everybody. Hassan Shariq, regulated Canadian immigration consultant. I welcome you all into our weekend live session on Canadian immigration. My well wishes for you and your family, wherever in the world you are. Um, Hopefully, things are well in whichever part of the world you are. Um, right now it's got a little chilly, so it's officially winters over here in Canada. So yeah, all the Canadian aspirants who are wherever in the world you are, um, get ready for facing some winter time because Canada is cold. Fair enough. So quite a few updates this particular week. I know there's a lot of questions already, so people might have questions. Feel free to post the questions. There are a few updates that I would want to talk about. I would greatly request that all of you who are watching, wherever you're watching from, do mention that where are you based. This sort of gives a feel as to from what places is the audience. So, few updates. First of all, an important update in terms of international students, study permit applicants. Just a couple of days ago, and I've already made a video and I uploaded that on the YouTube channel. Probably it's there on the Facebook page as well. Wherein a couple of days back, the Minister of Immigration for Canada has announced that starting from 20th of October, international students who have a valid study permit will be allowed to travel back to Canada. Now, just giving you a bit of a background, a lot of international students who even had their visas granted were not being allowed to travel to Canada at this stage, because a lot of classes, a lot of institutions were doing their classes online. This fall term, which starts from September, was pretty much all online for all the universities, at least for most of colleges as well. So even students who had a study permit at times were not allowed in because it was considered as a non-essential or non-necessary need for travel. And then there was a travel restriction where it was stated that anybody who had a study permit granted after March the 18th or 14th, one of the dates, it's skipping my mind, they were not allowed to travel at all. So only those people who had their study permit granted before March 2020 were allowed in. Now that the new policy says that everybody can travel in, the only requirement is that the institution that you're going to study, which is called a DLI, a designated learning institution. So first of all, if you have a study permit, you must be registered at a DLI and not just at any institution. So your DLI must have an approved plan in terms of handling with COVID situation when students from outside of Canada are coming in. So that approved plan, they must have the approved plan. And because Canada has a provincial system where all major universities and colleges are regulated by the province or territory that they're based in, so you must have, the DLI must have an approved plan with the relevant province or territory. And there is going to be a list of these institutions. It's going to be placed publicly on Government of Canada website probably, or on province's website, where this list of approved institutions will be there. Now, right now, that list is not available. So I mentioned in the video that I made and uploaded about it that a lot of times with such information coming in, usually there is, this whole thing of jumping on the bandwagon. Let's wait for about a week and there will be more clarity in terms of where that list will be, how this will be rolled out. But it is going to be there. Two important things out of this policy. I know a lot of you are not study permit applicants or not connected to that. So you might be saying that, why am I even discussing this? Well, study permit is Canadian immigration process. So that's why I'm discussing it. And secondly, in terms of the policy itself, not only international students, but their immediate family members, such as their spouse, common law partners, their dependent children, they can travel to Canada along with them as well. So it is not only specific for international students only, but their partners and their dependents can travel as well. So that's really good news. Secondly, the more important piece, which has sort of a wider impact and which I wanted to discuss, was that there's a large number of international students who move to Canada. Many current students, many new students, and this is coming out of various countries of the world. The policy that has been brought in place is that it doesn't matter from which country you're coming in, you will be allowed in. So this is like the first step in terms of relaxing the travel restrictions. We saw that there were some exemptions. Initially, it was just PR and citizens, then their spouses. Then there was an exemption which was provided wherein if it is unnecessary travel, and it might be even the parents. And now with this particular policy in place, this indicates that Government of Canada, at the federal level at least, is moving towards a policy of opening up and probably lifting the travel restrictions in coming weeks and months. It might take a bit of time. It might not be all that quick. It might be gradual, but this clearly indicates that we are moving towards that, because initially the policy was that students who have to study online, this online study which is outside of Canada will be considered study in Canada up until 30th of April. But now with the entry being allowed starting from 20th October, this indicates that we are moving towards a situation, or there will be policies by the federal government at the back end. They're working that greater international community or travelers at large might be allowed to travel to Canada in coming, if not weeks, maybe months. So that's on track. So this is good news for students. This is good news for their families. Just one thing that I probably missed, that if there is a student who is still not 18 years of age and is less than that, and they get a study permit and they travel to Canada, their parent or legal guardian can travel to Canada along with them to help them sort of establish themselves, and then they can move back. So that's one good news. Secondly, I have made a video about that and posted it on YouTube channel, wherein I mentioned, I did a quick analysis on the express entry draw which happened this particular week. Now, this was of significance as well. This was the third all-inclusive draw. And I have been of the opinion very early on, once we had the all-inclusive draw, then we had a targeted draw. So a lot of people were of the opinion that it is going to be an alternate draw policy. But I've been of the opinion that no, that's not going to be the case. I feel that now it is going to be more and more all-inclusive draws, if not all of them being all-inclusive. An important thing to keep in mind at this stage is that we've already reached about 70-something thousand invitations for this particular year. The target that federal government had set for these particular streams under express entry, the federal programs, was at about 85,000 spots for this year. So we are very close to reaching that target. And now what we've seen is that lately the number of invitations have been around 4,000. So if we move by the same volume of ITAs and the same frequency, because it is every 2 weeks. So this one happened on 30th of September. So probably the next one would be expected around mid-October, and then another probably beginning of November. If these are 4,000, then we are almost close to the 85,000 target. So you never know, if we have the same volume, it might only be 3 or 4 more draws. We'll have to see, because sometimes the ITAs that are issued, they're not everybody accepts them. So there is a number who sort of fall down and do not accept these ITAs. So if there have been 74,000, 75,000 ITAs issued, that does not really mean that 75,000 or 74,000 people have accepted those as well. So there might be spots, but we are now very close to reaching the quota for this particular year. So we'll have to see as to how many people are invited in the 3 months that we have, pretty much the whole of October, then November, and then December. What I feel is that either the number of ITAs being issued will be reduced. Again, this is my own opinion, and this is based on the number and data that it has. That's why I'm sharing that data with you guys. So either it's going to be a smaller number of ITAs issued, or we might see the frequency of draws changing, wherein we might not have an express entry draw every 2 weeks. So let's see how that rolls out. In terms of the upcoming possible draw, if we have a draw, say in 2 weeks' time from when the last draw happened, looking at the pool, it seems that this is where the heaviest competition lies. So between, say, 475 to about 465 is where a lot of applicants seem to be placed. I would say that if it is an all-inclusive draw, again, the cut of CRS will fall between 1 to 2 CRS points. That's an estimated number. Again, we do not have the exact composition of the pool, but we see that the pool is staying very, very consistent. So the overall number, 143, 144,000, the number of applicants who are within the score ranges of 450 to 500, that's staying consistent at about 23,000. The individual score ranges of 450 to 460, that's about 9,000, I believe, right off my head. Same is for the one score range above that. And the score range of 470 to 480, that is sort of staying at about 3,000 people in that score range. So this is the most competitive score range where most of the applicants are placed. So I believe if it is an all-inclusive draw, the score will drop by probably 1 to 2 CRS points. And also, as I mentioned, we are very close to hitting the target number for this particular year. So let's see how things sort of roll out. Fair enough. So let's move to our questions that you guys have posted. We will start off with Shivangi. Again, apologize if I pronounce some of the names wrong. So the question is, according to West, my bachelor's honors is equivalent to 4 years of Canadian bachelor's degree. What will it be equivalent to under Quebec skilled worker program, as Quebec has its own assessment? Shivangi, most likely it is going to be, if it is a 4 years bachelor's, because most of the bachelor's degrees in Canada most of them are 4 years. There is a 3 years non-honors degrees as well. So with a 4 years bachelor's honors degree, you should not be expecting it to be equivalent to anything else. I know in some parts of, especially with us in South Asia, we have for long, if not anymore, we've had these 2 years bachelor's followed by a 2 years master's. So a lot of people think that if it is an honors degree, it should be equal to a master's. That will not be the case. Also, the way it works is that as RCICs, we have a designation. So for Quebec, you must be proficient in French, and then you have to apply for for a Quebec-based license based on French. And I'm not fluent in French, so I have not opted for the Quebec immigration. I can do all Canadian immigration practice other than Quebec. So I'm not an expert at Quebec, in all honesty. But in terms of assessment, it will be a bachelor's degree. Moving on, Gaurav. Gaurav from Punjab, India. Gaurav, thank you for joining. And I think you do attend the session. If I'm wrong, welcome. If you do, then welcome again. By the way, I'm from Punjab as well, but I'm from the Pakistani side of Punjab. So I was born and raised in Lahore. Gaurav says, please clarify, if we work full-time while enrolled as a full-time student studying online in a DLI, would such experience gain be counted while applying for PR? Gaurav, I don't know, and we can also tell if a person is, there are two things. If you are studying and you have work experience during that time, that can absolutely be considered for express entry. But if you are studying in Canada and you're applying under the Canadian experience class, then the time that you have during your study, that is not considered. This is a fine line. Now, you mentioned, please clarify, we work full-time while enrolled as a full-time student studying online. This is a tricky piece because now there is online study option that is available as well. So this is going to be tricky. In all honesty, this is something that where we'll probably have to look at law in detail, because this is a new territory. This is not something which was happening previously. If you were studying online, you were not considered as enrolled at a DLI, a Canadian Designated Learning Institution. So it was not considered during the studies. But if you were applying for experience which was gained outside of Canada while you were studying, that was considered. Depending if it was full-time or a part-time, you would be allocated accordingly. This is something, in all honesty, I would have to have a look at the law for this. I wouldn't bluff about it. But I think if from how the law was previously, if this is experience while you're studying at a DLI, that might not be counted. That might not be. I'll have to have a look at the law for this. Gaurav has another question. Could you please also tell if a person who is neither a Canadian citizen or PR can become RCIC? No, Gaurav, the requirement to become an RCIC is that you have to be a Canadian citizen or permanent resident. Then you are supposed to, so that's the first requirement. Keep in mind, that's where a lot of fraud is. All our RCICs and Canadian immigration lawyers are regulated by certain laws, a code of ethics. If you are not a Canadian permanent resident or citizen, then Canadian law is not applicable to you. In all honesty, I never talk about it. There are people who are Canadian citizen permanent residents and are not RCICs, but they present themselves as to be official consultants in different ways, pretty famous, but they're not RCICs. And technically, that is a crime in Canada. The reason that you have to be a citizen or permanent resident of Canada, only then you can become an RCIC, is that if you breach any like a code of ethics, or if you do a fraud with your clients, Canadian law can be imposed on you, and that's why we sort of act very cautiously. And then there are people who are Canadian citizen permanent residents and are not RCICs and just posed to be as immigration consultants. So if you are taking professional advice like generally somebody explaining things to you is different. You can read something online and then talk about it. But if you are paying somebody for Canadian immigration services, always ask them for their RCIC number, RCIC membership, or their Canadian bar membership. A lot of people you'll find with this world of social media who pose to be immigration consultants, but are not RCICs. Moving on. Saju, hi Saju. Would like to know about CC draw staying at a score of 454. Any chance for CC draw coming in? Saju, I've sort of backtracked from this policy of predicting about the draws and stuff. It other than IRCC, nobody has this information. We practice immigration, but it's no official information that we have. So I'm not into that because I understand I have a lot of clients of my own, and I understand a lot of people are really anxious about this. And sometimes when I say something, later on, it's sort of people say that you mentioned like this. My personal opinion that it may be more and more all-inclusive draws, but we never know. And with the score, it's going to be competitive. A lot of high-scoring CEC people are entering the pool. I know that from first-hand experience. So CEC scores, even if it is a targeted draw, are going to be pretty competitive. Mohammed Shamsi, Assalamu alaikum, Assalamu alaikum, Shamsi. Shamsi says, I have a visit visa, validity till August 2021. When it expected to open borders for visitors? I've already mentioned that with the opening up, with the travel restrictions being taken away for international students, this sort of indicates that in coming months, the policies will change for other people as well. But as of now, saying that when is it expected to open up? Absolutely no confirmed thing on that, because now we officially have the second wave of COVID-19 here in Canada. The numbers in the province of Ontario have reached up to about 600. I don't even look at the numbers anymore, but they've gone back to about 600. Canada is closing to, I think, close to about 900, 1,000 numbers in total. So the opening up of borders is still something that that nobody's certain about. Also, keep in mind that being a neighbor to US, a lot of traffic between the two countries in terms of business visitors, travel visitor, tourism visitors. If the opening up happens, it will be an opening up for the greater part of the world. And then, if the US borders open up with the numbers that are there in US, Canada will have a challenge. We're a small country. So I don't have any fixed thing. It's not going to be like complete opening up of borders. I don't expect that in another about 3 months at least. How many questions do we have? Oh, we have a good number, so I'll try and be a little quick on that. Shivangi is telling that Shivangi is from Delhi, India. Thanks for being part of the session. Alain, hope you're doing well. A regular attendee of our session. Can we expect the same with COPR issuance and travel relaxation for approved applicants? Alain, yes. I think things are moving towards that. More recently, there have been policies wherein, again, skipping my mind, because so much is happening these days, for certain applicants who are in Canada, like who had applied for a work permit or who had a study permit, and they were in Canada, their ETAs, their permits were issued through email. So this was a more recent policy, probably in last week it came. So we are moving towards that thing. So let's be hopeful that this might happen as well. But again, there's so much, and there's so much pressure. So more recently, what Canadian immigration or the Minister of Immigration announced that they're going to add 60% more officers to outline spousal sponsorship applications because there were large delays. Like previously, these applications were finished in about 10 to 12 months. Now the initial acknowledgements are coming after, let's say, 7, 8 months, which usually used to take about 2 months. So there are delays, and then there are areas for which they're focusing. They feel that at this stage there is a high need to sort of provide a relaxation for a specific stream. So, but I sort of agree that that might be something which may happen soon. Waleed, hi Waleed. Waleed is from Lahore. Waleed says that I have worked part-time while doing my 4 years bachelor's BSc Honors Economics and Finance, and after that I did my MBA and later gained a full-time work experience. Will my part-time be considered for the 1560 working hours, and is this experience with IELTS and ETS sufficient for express entry? So if you work part-time, that's if it is legit work, you were paid for it, it is accepted. And it has to be prorated. So 30 hours per week is considered to be full-time work here in Canada. So depending, if you say, for instance, did 15 hours per week, and while you were studying, you could do work while you were studying, and that is considered if you're applying for the Federal Skilled Worker Program. So if you were, say, working 15 hours per week, that is half of full-time work. So if you work 6 months as 15 hours per week, that is equal to 3 months as full-time. So you can just do the maths yourself and see when you hit the requirement for 1 year work experience. Now, in terms of your profile, you have a master's, you have equal to and later gained a full-time work. So 1 year work experience is which makes you eligible. 1 year work experience, you meet the eligibility qualification, you already meet the eligibility, and now you're required to have your IELTS, and that will help you meet the eligibility. But will you be able to have enough CRS points to meet the high thresholds that are there right now? That is something that you should consider looking at. Right now, ideally speaking, people who have an equivalent of 3 years work experience, the age not more than 30, an IELTS score of CLB 9, and an ECA or a Canadian qualification of master's or bachelor's and one more degree, they have a good chance of being invited under the express entry round of invitation, because the scores are standing at around 470, and you will only be able to gain that score if you have these credentials. And in your case, I probably see that your experience would only be close to about 2 years, maybe. So maybe adding one more year of experience will help in your case. Hope that helps. Bassam, and if I'm not wrong, Bassam is one of my old classmates from university, and he's I believe so, because he's already also mentioned about the Qatari ID. But if you're not that Bassam, great, you're still more than welcome, my friend. So Bassam Khalil says that in my Qatari ID card, they have my name along with my dad and my grandfather's name. It's an Arabic thing, but I have only my name on my passport and all the educational document. Letter of explanation is good enough. And excuse me, officers who process applications with some Arabic documentation or coming from the Arab countries, they understand that this is the norm. Even if you have a visit visa, to one of these Arab countries, this is how they write the name. So when you submit those documentation, they know that this is how it is. So absolutely no issue. Absolutely no issue on that. Walt Kamran, please, Alberta, elaborate my case. Okay, I don't know what this word is. Walt, my case FSW with job offer, my AOR is equal to 20 March 2020, medical submitted, work permit also submitted, in my PR applicant time, bar complete both, expected PPR time. But I cannot give you expected PPR time. I don't have your case with me. I don't know. I know you've put all these details. You should check this. If you applied through an authorized representative, you should check with them, or you should be checking with immigration, because I wouldn't have details on this. So I'm really sorry, not in a position to help you in that. Bassam has another query, which is, now I have to submit some sort of proof for the discrepancy because my Qatari PCC and bank statement will have my extended name. A letter of explanation is good enough. At max, Bassam, what you could do in such a case, get an affidavit made, and in that affidavit, have this mentioned, and then have it notarized wherever you are, that this is how it is over here, and that's why it is coming like that. A letter of explanation is good enough. Arjun, hi Arjun. Hope you're doing well. Again, Arjun, a regular attendee, and it sort of feels nice to see these familiar names and faces. Sort of a community feel. Arjun says, Arjun, all well with myself and my family, and I pray the same for you. So Arjun says, me and my spouse have applied together and are part of Express Entry. We only have marriage certificate as proof, and she doesn't have my name in her passport. Neither she has changed her family name after our marriage till now. Will our marriage certificate only suffice the purpose, or we need to submit? Absolutely no issue if the name has not been changed, and if you have the marriage certificates, that's perfectly fine. A marriage certificate, because you're based in Oman, so a marriage certificate, if a marriage happened in Oman, if the marriage certificate is recognized in the country of residence that you're a legal resident of, absolutely no issue. There's no need to change the name. If she hasn't changed the passport, even that's fine. And there's a lot of instances where the surname is not changed, and people only have a change in their passport, where rather than father's name, you put in husband's name. So absolutely no issue. There's no need to change your name for this purpose. If a woman doesn't want to change the name, that's absolutely fine. Once you get the PR, this will actually help. If your wife hasn't changed her surname, this will help, because here in Canada, for a lot of purposes, they will ask for the maiden name. If there is a name change, then you have to provide documentation for that. So for those who get to have their spouse surname changed, later on, they have to bring that documentation, because if you get to have a child born here in Canada, they ask for mother's maiden name. If that is different than what it is on your current ID documents, then you have to provide that documentation. So it can be tricky. So for those who do not make that change in the surname for their spouse, they're actually better off. So you are good to go on that. Mushtaq Ahmed. So Mushtaq says, Shariq bhai, do the sessions in Urdu. Well, no. I'm a proud Urdu speaker. I have absolutely nothing with that. But this particular session and my clientele being based here, I have clients from all around the world. Yes, a large part of my community on these social media platforms is from South Asia, but my clientele in these forums that I have, these are specifically for the purpose, like I don't charge anything here or anything. So this is specifically for the purpose of spreading more and more guidance and information about Canadian immigration, so that people. If I do it only in Urdu, Hindi, there will be a limited number of people who will be able to understand that. And I really want it to sort of spread around. So that's why I don't do it in Urdu. And also keep in mind, if you're interested in Canadian immigration, you must be in a position to understand this bit of English. Because if you can't understand this bit of English, that means you will not be able to do well on IELTS or any other language test, and prospects of Canadian immigration are sort of out, at least the skilled immigration. So I'm really sorry. I would love to do sessions in my native tongue, but I think for greater reach, it is important to do it in English. Rajesh Patel, how many points for 3-year field experience in Canada? Rajesh, this sort of depends which stream you're applying to. If you're looking at express entry and you're looking at the CRS points, there aren't any specific points itself for Canadian experience or foreign experience. You get these points in terms of skill transferability, and they're always in combination. So there is a combination of Canadian work experience and foreign work experience. You even get that for 1 year, like if you have 1 year of Canadian work experience. There is a combination of experience and language ability. There's a combination of experience and your qualification. In fact, we do have some time. So what I'll do is I'll quickly, if you folks allow me a minute, I will. I am going to, yeah. So I will share the screen. Yeah, so here you guys are on, this is Government of Canada official website, and that's where I see a lot of, like even in videos, I provide these links. So a lot of information is up there. You just have to go there and look for all these details. And if you are somebody who's doing it yourself, you have to look for all this information. That's your responsibility. So this is comprehensive ranking system, the CRS score that we all talk about. If you have a look, so these are the different factors that you have. I will try and zoom in a bit. Yeah. So if you see for Canadian work experience, you can gain up to 70 CRS points if you are single or it's a non-accompanying. Sorry, if you're with a spouse, and up to 80 CRS points if it is without a spouse or common law partner. Now, in terms of the individual points itself, if you see there is this skill transferability factor with Canadian work experience and a post-secondary degree, this can be up to 50. So if we go down and we see so see Canadian work experience and post-secondary qualification. So if you have 1 year of Canadian work experience, and depending on what qualification you have on this left-hand side, say if you have 1 year of Canadian work experience and you have a university level, you have a master's degree, this will be 25 CRS points, additional CRS points. If you have 2 years or more of Canadian work experience, which is possible, like if you did a bachelor's degree, which was 4 years, you would get a postgraduate work permit for that time period. Or if you do a master's. So say you have 2 years work experience and you only have a post-secondary program credential of 1 year or longer, this will give you 25 CRS points. So for those who are doing, say, postgraduate diploma or postgraduate certificates in Canada, they'll get a postgraduate work permit of 1 year. And then once they work in Canada for 1 year, that 1 year experience along with a 1 year degree would get them 25 CRS points. Whereas if you work for 2 years and you have 2 or more post-secondary programs, and at least one of that is at a 3-year program, this can be 50 points. So that's how the points in terms of Canadian experience can fetch you points. Just for the sake of Canadian experience, it can be 70 or 80 CRS points depending on your marital status, and some additional points over here. Okay, Shivangi has a question, which is, I have 12 months of experience in the following manner. 7 months, break of 4 months, 5 months can apply in federal. No. So your eligible experience has to be continuous, equivalent of 12 months, continuous. CEC people can have a break, but to be eligible, it has to be 12 months continuous. And I've explained this in some previous videos. When I say continuous, it doesn't mean that it has to be with the same employer. The employer can change, but in the same field, there should not be a break. It might be that you were working and you work for 7 months at XYZ company, working as a marketing manager, and you got another job as a marketing manager at ABC Corporation. Now, there might be, say, a gap of maybe a few days where you're moving from one job to another. That's fine. But this is not considered as a gap, like if you've changed employers. But if you were working for 9 months, 10 months, and then you left that job, were not working for 3 months, and then started a similar job, even at the same organization or a different organization, this is not considered as continuous work experience. You must have one instance of 12 months full-time experience to be eligible. Once you'll hit that 12 months continuous period, then you can accumulate all of it. So once your eligibility, the first 12 months of work experience eligibility is met, then any experience which is even in parts, there are gaps, that can be accumulated as well. But there has to be one 12 months continuous work experience, which makes you eligible for this. Irfan Ria says, Salam, Walaikum Assalam, Irfan. Gaurav, Gaurav, it's a pleasure talking to all of you. Other than my routine work client thing, this is a good opportunity to talk with people and sort of clarify things. Irfan asks, kindly describe a bit about FSW as my wife main applicant. She's B.Ed and M.Ed from Pakistan as a teacher, having experience for about 5 years or more. With IELTS score, should she supposed to get any ITF or not? For teachers, FSW is the option. They don't have options in PNPs. The details that you've provided, see, these days, if you are not able to score CLB 9, you do not have a possibility in the FSW. CLB 9, I've done a video for those of you who are subscribers or followers of my YouTube channel. There is a video which is language tests for Canadian immigration. And I've explained the whole CLB thing, all the requirements. Do watch that video. You will get more clarity on this thing. CLB 9 is 8 in listening, 7 in all others. As I mentioned, Irfan, watch the video on my YouTube channel, which is about language test for Canadian immigration. You'll get the whole idea. If somebody at this time period is not able to achieve CLB 9, FSW options are completely out. So that's what she requires. 5 years of work experience, that meets the 3-year requirement. Now the important thing will be EC assessment. If she's able to get the EC assessment of masters, or the other one, which is 2 or more bachelor's degrees, then she has good prospects. So I think, I don't know the age. If it is less than 30, that's highest points as well. Then it will be left with IELTS. Freemium, hello, Freemium. Again, a familiar name. In EAPR, what do they mean by upload passports multiple? And in the questions, they ask to put the details of the passport that I will travel with. If I have 2 citizenships, do I choose one? If you have multiple citizenships, you have to mention, and this has to be mentioned early on, you have to mention that you have multiple citizenships. When you're filling up the form, initial ones, you do mention that if you have multiple citizenships. So that should have already been stated. In terms of passports, multiple, this can be because of the reason that you have multiple citizenships, and you've mentioned that, so they're asking you for multiple passports. Now, the one that you will choose for travel is the one which you've already indicated once you created your Express Entry profile. So there must be one which you mentioned is your primary passport. So that's the one that's going to be used. Multiple passports, it can be because of multiple citizenships, or maybe if you have had travel history in last 10 years, and that travel history was on various passports, then you are required to submit multiple passports, wherein in the last 10 years, if you've traveled outside of your country of residence or country of origin, you have to provide details of that travel, and then using your passports, you have to submit all the passports which were used for that, specifically the pages which have your biodata, and the pages which have visa labels or an entry-exit stamp, not blank pages. So that's why multiple passports are required. Muhammad Hassan Javed is asking, are you licensed? Yes, I'm an RCIC. If you see the title, it is RCIC, and RCIC stands for Regulated Canadian Immigration Consultant in Canada. Canadian immigration lawyers, or Canadian lawyers, or RCICs are the two professions which are allowed and authorized by the government to provide advising on Canadian immigration and officially represent your case. So the difference is that if it is one of those ghost consultants, they will not have an access to what is called an authorized representative portal with Canadian immigration. They cannot submit your application officially through that. There is a form that we get filled by the applicants, and we submit that, and then Canadian immigration officially corresponds with us. So always, if you're using a consultant, always ask if they have the RCIC membership number. They provide you the RCIC membership number, and there is a website. You can go just look at the RCIC licensing number. You put the number, and all the details will show up. So yes, I am licensed. I'm an RCIC. You can send an email, and I can provide the details or the link where you can look at my listings. In terms of fees, that varies on case-to-case basis. You can go online on my website. I will. This might not be of interest to all, but I will share this as well. Yeah, so that's our official website for my firm. Again, my purpose is over here not to promote this. I do promote, that's my profession, and I do it, but because it was asked. So that's my website for all of you or anybody who's interested in using our services. You have the contacts over here. You have the email address on the screen. You can send an email, and one of my staff's members can get back. And we have all our fees listed on here as well. So these are the generic fees that are there for various applications and processes. So it depends as to what service you would want to have. There's a process of consultation as well. And this is again for a lot of people who just want to sort of discuss something in specific and don't really want to have a service. They can book a consultation. It is a 30-minute session, which is charged at 100 Canadian dollars. You can send in a request wherein my staff will schedule a virtual appointment with you. It is done through Zoom or Skype, and you provide all your details. I will review all the details and will provide you specific advising on your case. A lot of people want to have their assessment done, people who are interested in knowing about PNP options, sometimes about documentation. So if you just want to know about those options, you can book a consultation session, which is charged at 100 Canadian dollars for a 30-minute session. And then there are, as I mentioned on the link, there are all the services that our firm provides that are there. Freemium has a further question. We are at about 51 minutes, and there's some questions, so I'll try and be a little quick. In EAPR, there's a field called Family Member Proof of Status. There are 3 fields also: one, proof of PR citizenship, proof of residency in Canada of sibling, proof of sibling relationship. That's because I don't have all your details in front of me, so it becomes a little challenging to advise like this. But all the sections that are there, like you've received the ITA, all the sections, first of all, congratulations that you've received an ITA. It is based on the answers that you've provided. So all the document checklist that you get is based on the answers you've provided in different questions. So it means family member proof of status. It means that you've provided probably your spouse or somebody is based in Canada, or you're in some other country out of your country of residence. So you have to provide that proof. Like if they're on a work permit, if they're on a study permit, or if they are Canadian PR or citizen, that's what it is asking for. Proof of PR citizenship of sibling, that means that you've mentioned that, and you've gained points for this, that one of your brothers or sisters is a Canadian PR or citizen. So you have to provide that proof. You have to provide their PR card or their passport, and also the proof of their residency, which can be in form of a utility bill, banking statement, and proof of sibling relationship. Now, depending on which country you're from, in countries like in Pakistan, there is the FRC. You could provide that. For other countries where there is no family tree document, you could use the passports, where or a birth certificate, where you can show if it is a sibling, you will have same father or same parent name. So that can be used to show your relationship with that. So Shamsi is saying that I am from Lahore, Pakistan. I have got a job offer from GTA, which would be a closed work permit for 2 years. How soon after this I would be able to apply open work permit for spouse? So I think your question is, John, would I be eligible for applying? I think your question is that once you have your work permit, once you have your work permit, you can apply for your spouse open work permit right away. There's no waiting time for that. In terms of your question, after being there, will my job, would I be eligible for applying for OINP? It has to be seen, because for OINP, there are requirements, the employer-driven programs, there are requirements in terms of details with your employer. So not every job offer can help you that. And now they're moving towards an expression of interest system, where those who are through the employer-driven stream will actually be ranked in a system, and then based on that, invitations will be issued. So we'll have to see as to how that program rolls out. Sanaham, hi, we want immigration with my husband. I have a master's and also French, TEF, and IELTS and 1 year experience. I'm from Algeria and my husband from Pakistan. Which good way for us? Our CRS maybe 450. Like, so Sana, if you are around 450 with French, you have good probability to get some additional points for French. If you are around 450, I would say that you can have a look. That I don't know if this 450 is based on accompanying spouse. So you might look at the option of non-accompanying spouse to increase those points. 1 year experience will fetch you just the basic points. So if you could have 2 years experience, that will increase your points. If it reaches 3 years, that's where you'll have maximum points. Also, depending on the profession you have, with 450, there is the possibility of OINP, the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program. Some of the professions are accepted there. If you have French ability, there is the possibility of the Ontario stream for French language speakers as well. So you could look at those opportunities as well. Arjun says, our marriage happened in India. We're both residents of Oman for work purpose here in Oman. We only have marriage certificate possible by Ministry of External Affairs in India, because that is a requirement of Oman. I hope that will work for Canadian documented. Arjun, that should work. That should work as long as you have the documentation, which proves for your country of residence and the country of origin. That's absolutely fine. Yeah, we are at 57-minute mark, so I'll be a little quick now. Daljit Singh, hello sir, can ICAS consider Master of Science in Chemistry in Indian is equal to Master in Canadian, or they will consider it as graduate? Daljit, ECA bodies have their own policies. I've studied Canadian immigration law, and that's what I'm an expert. This is an associated thing, but this is not really that we have deep knowledge. Masters of Science, now this depends. If it is just 16 years of education, like a 2 years bachelor's and a 2 years master's, then it will most likely be considered as a bachelor's degree. If it is a master's for which the entry requirements are maybe 3 years bachelor's or 4 years bachelor's, then it can be considered. So if it is 2 years bachelor's and 2 years master's, most likely this will be considered as a Canadian bachelor's degree. Rashkendra is asking about the chances of 468 CRS in the next FSW draw. 468, I would wish that happens, but 468 I think will not be possible because, as I mentioned, this is where a lot of competition is. So probably 1 to 2 CRS points dip, but 468 is just there on the margin. So you never know. My own thinking is all-inclusive draw, probably 1 or 2 CRS points. So Sana, what's the equivalence of masters in Canada? It doesn't work like that. You have to get an ECA, and if you have a master's in finance, and if it is a master's which was done after a 3 years or a 4 years bachelor's degree, you will most likely be getting a master's equivalence. You have to check. If you look at WES, WES is one of those bodies which is very quick, but they are a little strict in terms of doing the ECA. you could use their online tool. They have an online tool on their website. You could use that tool to just provide the details of all your qualification, and they'll be able to provide you as to what can it be considered as. So that's you could use that. But if it was done after the master's was done after a 4 years bachelor's, most likely you will be able to get a master's for that. Basam, this is an important question. So Basam says that I work part-time, but the HR didn't put hours on the experience letter. I have a supportive letter from my superior mentioning the hours. Is it fine? So keep in mind that for the purpose of immigration, once you submit your documentation, you have to provide your weekly working hours. I know a lot of parts of the world, the experience letter doesn't have that details. That's why this is not the normal experience letter, which are supposed to be submitted for your PR application. It is a work reference letter. Work hours must be mentioned. If HR is not mentioning that, you have to provide other documentation, supporting documentation. It can be from your supervisors, your colleagues, some kind of affidavit, which proves that what was the hours, the work hours that you've put in, because only then they can calculate. If they're not able to ascertain your work hours, they will not consider it as fulfilling the requirements in terms of proving your experience. So it is important to have your work hours mentioned somehow. Next question is from Sumbul Ahmed. Are fixed deposit accepted as proof of funds for parents visitor visa? The funds are joint account and Indian bank account. My parents will be coming for less than 6 months. FD done 5 months ago. Fixed deposits are fine enough. Now I don't know. You mean fixed deposits in your parents' name? That's perfectly fine, because keep in mind, they're the ones who are applying for the visitor visa, so they have to prove that they have enough means with them to at least cover the cost of the trip, the expected trip. And if these are fixed, just keep in mind that there are two kinds of fixed deposit. One where you can encash them before the date of maturity, and the others are which are non-encashable. So if these are non-encashable, then they must have some cash with them as well, because you have to show that these funds are accessible to you, and because these are being shown for the purpose of covering the cost of trip. So if they're not encashable, then there's no point. So these are the fine lines that you have to have a look at. Usman Ahmed has a question, which is a very generic but a very common question. What are the options for people in Gulf? So there are all the options that are there for people, for Canadian immigration, who are based in India, in Pakistan, in Africa, in Southeast Asia. They're the same options that people from Gulf have. So there are options in terms of skill migration. It will depend. If you're looking at skill migration, it is going to be the express entry or the provincial nomination programs. If you run a business, or if you are a senior manager and you have the ability to invest at least about 200,000 Canadian dollars, you have the opportunity to apply under one of the business streams. So these are the options. Or you could look for further education in Canada and then use the postgraduate work permit and your previous credentials to apply for PR. Rahul, sir, I applied in express entry. What is the probability that IRCC may call at the workplace I am working at for verification? India, reason my HR is not a friendly person and might neglect the call. They do the scrutiny. Now it depends. They can call, they can send an email. So the scrutiny happens. Sometimes, depending on the organization, if it is a big organization where authenticity is not an issue, they might not call, but scrutiny does happen. Okay. Anthony, sir, one, I applied as non-accompanying spouse for PR. Will I be able to bring wife later? Yes. Once you get your PR, you do the landing, you become the permanent resident, you activate your status. That's when you can apply. So you can technically apply right after landing. Probably after like about a couple of weeks from once you've landed, you got your PR card and stuff, you can submit your spousal sponsorship application. It has to be done from within Canada. It's a paper-based application. So you could do that once you land. No issues with that. Sana, who had a question previously, says that I have 3 years of bachelor's and 2 years of master's, whole years of study is 18. Sana, you most likely you should be able to get a master's. If not a master's, you will get the other one, which is more, which is like 2 or more degrees, with one being at least a 3 years degree. What you could do is that if you have a 2 years master's, I would keep in mind for express entry. For the federal programs, it is your highest level of qualification for which you have to have an ECA. You are not required to have an ECA for all your qualifications, starting from high school maybe. Some of the provincial nomination programs do require all credentials. So it is your highest one. So if you have a master's, which was a 2 years master's, I would suggest you can actually submit just your master's for an ECA. So you could look at different bodies who would do that. As I mentioned, use the WES tool to see what equivalence they might have. You can use IQS, you can use CES. CES is pretty good in terms of submitting the top credential, although they're taking a lot of time. So just send in your masters for ECA, and most likely you'll get a master's. Arjun, regarding work hours, my wife is a teacher, primary applicant, and have been told that work hours won't be mentioned on the experience letter. How do we deal with this? We have pay slips. You have to have that mentioned somehow, either through an immediate supervisor, like an affidavit from them, from an affidavit from a colleague. You have to provide supporting letters, explain that in the letter of explanation. If you have some kind of written correspondence where the HR or the admin department has clearly mentioned that they will not be putting work hours on the experience letter, use that piece of evidence as well, and then provide supporting documentation from your colleagues, from the supervisors in their personal capacity to prove this, because this is important. Okay, we've crossed the 1 hour mark. I have about 4 or 5 queries. I'll just finish this off and then we. So Anthony and what about learning French to increase points, and which course minimum score, please? So Anthony, yes, if you learn French and you can take one of the French language tests, that can increase your points. What I would suggest is that on my channel, my firm's channel, Shariq Immigration YouTube channel, more recently I uploaded a video which was about a language test for Canadian immigration. Watch that video. It's not a long one, I think about 10 to 12 minutes. It has all the details in terms of how this can help you, what are the requirements for French, what scores would you require. I would suggest watch that video in detail. It's language requirements for Canadian immigration 2020, something like that. Adil Momin, unfortunately, I'm not eligible for express entry, so my only hope is investments. Could you please explain which program is conveniently preferred? Abdul, the problem is that with investment-based things, there are a lot of possibilities, and it is hard to sort of pinpoint one like this in such a discussion. I have again a video on my YouTube channel, which is Canadian Business Immigration 2020 or something like that, in which I've explained the 3 broad categories that are there. Please watch that video. You'll get a little more detail, and then if you're interested, you can send an email. The email address is on the screen. Mention that you're interested in a business investment stream. My staff will share a questionnaire with you. We'll get the information, and then we'll suggest that what are the possibilities, And then if you would want to proceed further, like have more specific details, you'll have to book a consultation session directly with me, and where I can tell you what are the requirements. In general, there are two streams. One are the PNP or the entrepreneur streams by each province, which leads directly into a PR. And then there is the possibility of buying a business, moving to Canada on a business work permit, and then using your credentials to apply under the express entry if you meet that requirement. So we'll have to do that assessment. So I would suggest watch the video, which is on my YouTube channel about business immigration. Canadian business immigration, and send an email at the email address which is on the screen, info@shariqimmigration.com. Mention that you're interested in a business stream, and we'll take it on. Merlin, hi Shariq, I have put a hold on applying as a single applicant and I have a CRS score of 468. When do you think the scores will drop to 468? I can't really say when they will drop down to 468. If we have all-inclusive draws every 2 weeks, then probably this will happen this year. But I can't really say, because last time the CRS dip was just 1 CRS point. And I know that this is the score range where it is very, very competitive. So you never know, and with the annual quotas being very close to like the number of ITAs that have been issued are very close to the annual quotas that are there. I'm not 100% sure as to how many more ITAs will be issued this year. So I wouldn't really say that. All-inclusive draws in with the same frequency, maybe around 2 to 3 more draws, we may see it close to 468. Rahul, regarding previous question of call verification, I've submitted all documents like appointment, joining letter. As I mentioned already, Rahul, it's the officer's choice. They do call for verification. So sometimes they don't. It totally depends. So I can't really say that if they will call at your workplace or not, but you should always be prepared that yes, they will. Muhammad Yasser Huda, if offer letter doesn't state that I will have job for 1 year after getting PR, but the same is written in employment verification letter by supervisor, will that suffice and accepted by IRCC? Muhammad Yasser Huda, if offer letter doesn't state that, now I'm not 100% sure if you are talking about a Canadian job offer letter. If that is the case, then your job offer letter has to have that mentioned. I'm really sorry, I'm not clear on that. Sarah Saeed, what do you think as a married student, it's better to apply with spouse or without them? This depends. This sort of depends. It's always good to apply together because in the same application you can submit this the spousal open work permit as well. But at times, if your spouse has an established career in the country of residence and they're doing well, you could submit your application on your own, stating that they will be staying in their profession, in their business, continuing with that. And then later on, you can, once you get your study permit granted, you can apply for your spouse. So it sort of depends on the situation. It's just the best presentation of case. As Canadian immigration law practitioners, we look at things in a different way. We do not have these fixed models for things. We look at how the case is and how to best present that case. Essen, hi Shariq, I have 2 years experience in master's degree as well. I need to apply for any sort of immigration program like PNP or NP. Kindly guide me. Essen, I've done a lot of videos. Watch those videos, do your basic assessment. If you have 2 years experience, you meet the eligibility. If you have a master's, you probably are in good position to score high points. You need to have CLB 9 in IELTS. There are videos that I've made on language test. Watch those videos and do an assessment. There is a CRS calculator. Do an assessment if you would want your specific case advising, like a basic assessment. Send an email and my staff can ask for a few details and we can let you know. If you want specific advising on your case, you have to book a paid consultation session with me. I've talked about it in the beginning of the video as well. Okay, the last go. So Tabriz, any chance 461, sir? Not so soon, probably. Sumbul, I'm talking about CEC. Sumbul, you asked about the visitor visa, if I'm not wrong. CEC is Canadian Experience Class. That's a permanent residency application. So I don't know if visitor visa, that's those financials. If CEC, and you're talking about the proof of funds, yes, term deposits can be submitted, but again, this has to be accessible at the time that you need this money in Canada. This money has to be with you. So again, the maturity date will be important. A joint account, it cannot be a joint account with you as the applicant for PR and your parents. It can be a joint account for a husband and wife, but not a joint account for a relationship other than that. When is the municipal program going to be launched? It was supposed to be launched because of the COVID. There is a delay, so probably next year now. Yasser Huda, I'm talking about CEC class, claiming points for 1 year valid job offer. If my supervisor has written that I will have job offer 1 year getting PR, is that fine, or it should be a written offer letter? It should be a written offer letter. It should meet the requirements of the job offer letter and not a supporting letter by somebody else. Raja Ali, if I received Saskatchewan PR under express entry system and got there for 30 days after that, if I got approval for Saskatchewan local government to leave and go to Ontario, will I face any problem after 3 years? It's a moral binding. If the government allows, perfectly fine. Otherwise, you can have issues when you apply for your citizenship, because the PR was granted with the condition that you have an intent to settle in the province of Saskatchewan. Usually, if you stay there for 2 years, there's no issue. If it is not 2 years, then you can have some issues at the stage of citizenship. But if you have approval for that, then that's fine. Anthony, how much is the predicted CRS for a CEC applicant this year? And will no prediction, buddy, and we do not know if there is going to be CEC specific draws anymore. SNLE, okay, I will hit back at your email soon. Perfect. Please, sir, if you're applying for the visitor visa that has been updated when we have collected our work permit, can we apply for the PR while still in Canada? I couldn't get that question. You can apply for PR while you're in Canada. If you are on a work permit, definitely, there's a lot of people who are on closed work permit or open work permits like postgraduate work permit, and they apply for their PR while they're in Canada. So with that, we finish the session. Thanks a lot for taking out the time. It's always great doing these sessions. As there's a lot of learning for me as well, like the challenges and the questions that you people face, and then I can make my social media posts on that. For all of you who are regular viewers, for new ones, because there are people who attended this session on Facebook, they're on YouTube. For those who are on Facebook, I have a YouTube channel, and I regularly upload videos on topics of Canadian immigration. I've already mentioned that I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant based here in Mississauga, Canada, and I practice immigration. So I upload videos on topics of Canadian immigration. If you would want to do all the process on your own, do subscribe to these social media platforms so that you get the specific information. So your support in terms of subscribing to the channel, to the Facebook page is greatly appreciated. Do provide your comments, your suggestions, because that sort of helps in improving my delivery to you guys on various topics. Yeah, and for those who would want to use our services, the email address is there on the screen. I would just mention here that for those who submit generic queries on our email address, that goes out, and my staff would require some details from your side. You provide those details, and we can do a basic assessment. If you want a case-specific assessment or advising where you want to know the specific details for you, for that, the way it works is that you book a consultation session wherein I review all your details, and then I specifically tell you that what are the opportunities that you have, or if you don't have a realistic opportunity, it's charged at 100 Canadian dollars for a 30-minute session. So you could book that session. If you would like to, if you know that, okay, you are eligible for these various programs and you would want to move forward, definitely you could take it on from there. If you want to sort of, now you know the opportunities and you would want to do it yourself, you have the opportunity of doing that. So that's all for today. For many in different parts of the world, because it's a Sunday, it might already be evening time. Southeast Asia, that's already probably people would be sleeping. So whatever you have left in terms of your weekend, enjoy that. Some people from Middle East, it might be a working day. So enjoy whatever time it is for you. Do take care of yourself and your family, especially in these COVID situations. And we will meet again with another session next weekend. Till that time, goodbye.